Hello everyone, good afternoon. Apologies for the couple of days off doing streams. I ran out of alerts, so I kind of slowed down on doing the alt updates, and also Bitcoin and Ether have just been extremely painful, so I just need to keep a bit of an eye on my computer CPU situation. My CPU is 100% and my memory is at 90 at the moment, so I'm slightly concerned that the stream's not gonna hold up, but please let me know in chat if there's any problems that you see, and hopefully I won't have to restart. I'm not going to be able to do too much today though, to be honest, because I just think it's a mess, so I'll kind of explain why I think it's a mess more than anything, and what my concerns are. But I thought I'd start just doing an update of the alerts I gave last week, and I gave more in the and more commentary in the chat and on Telegram than I did on the streams, because I didn't stream throughout this period. But not much changed really from what I'd said on the streams. But yeah, so we had nice drop down into this zone that we wanted here, and then a really decent move off it. I got a aggressive long entry on the retest here, but then I think I was looking, I think when I did the last stream I was looking for, like, this was another option, but was over here just taking out these lows for a bounce, and I think this one I put in later because I just didn't necessarily expect to have such a strong move down and thought we might get a scalp in between. Yeah, so this one got run through on the long side, and then we did get a nice move off that up for the weekend. Didn't get very high, and then over the weekend I just threw in another long entry here. I think it was a 15-minute. I said there was a CME close that was below, so it was the timing. So this came through like earlier in the day yesterday, and then I put in another short off the 4-hour in the hope that we're going to move down to the CME close. So I can delete that now, but I just put that in to show that was where the gap was. And then now we're back down, so I think, and again, this entry I gave in a previous update when I had there, saying there was an untested 30-minute and possibly an hourly there as well, down at the base. And then similarly, so this arrow, I guess we bounced very, very slightly above where I wanted, and I think there is still some walls and things at 92k, so I said it was worth also watching for a possibility of a swing failure here. And like I say, I haven't looked in massive detail at kind of what else might happen down here at this point. I'll get to that in a minute, the reasons why. On the short side, so initially I was looking at, since the last update anyway, this 4-hour here for a rejection, and I said there's a possibility it'll go through and take out the wicks, excuse my alert, above those highs that we had from the Saturday before, which did happen, but then we had made a 4-hour demand in between, so there was a 4-hour demand in here. And that then got pushed up for the bigger move. And unfortunately, the bigger move didn't reach where I wanted a short entry. What I had said though in Telegram on this was be careful. And this was obviously the Bybit hack that everybody was calling. That was the reason it dropped. However, and I still haven't really got to the bottom of what this is, but I'll show you if it loads. So I've started using sort of some different ETF data. So I was just using data that gives you the data the day after. But this Arkham website apparently gives you like more up-to-date transfers, where you can have the at the time real-time transfers. And what we'd seen, so I've kind of updated, you can go and explore dashboards in Arkham, and then you can find there's somebody who's written, I think Arkham themselves have written a BTC ETF dashboard. So that's what I started using. So that gives you this table, which has all the ETFs and the transfers to and from. So I've been looking at that, but it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really, like, it was aligning with the previous data sources, but I'd had to wait till the next day to see them. But then it stopped aligning last week, so now I'm a little bit confused and I'm not sure what to trust. The thing here is, like, so I think these are, I don't know whether, actually, to be fair, I don't know where the data comes from for the other sources. I don't know if it's like a self-reported. I think one of them says it's automated and the other one doesn't say anything. But I don't know if it's like self-reported by the ETFs or where they get it from. The two of those sources, two completely different sources, do align. These are, I think, blockchain transfers of what's shown on the Arkham dashboard. And the problem here is, and so I'll show you what I saw last week. So this, I've made my own mini dashboard of just BlackRock. So I don't know if you can see that very easily, but these are all BlackRock transfers to random addresses. And now the addresses, like based on other data you can see on this dashboard, appear to be Binance or Coinbase, but I'm not 100% sure. And then I'm also not 100% sure if that actually means a sell. But what we did see on Friday, and this is something I haven't seen before from BlackRock, is multiple 300 BTC transfers from BlackRock to these addresses. So I don't know if that's a sell or whether they're transferring in preparation to sell or whether it's just a transfer. I mean, who knows? Like, I don't know what wallets they have. So, and I didn't see anybody else comment on that data on Friday, but then not long after that, we had the Bybit hack. And the two things I don't think are related at all, but obviously then everybody on Twitter and everything was focusing on the Bybit hack. Not on this. So, and I might go and search some of these addresses on Twitter this week and see if they actually give me anything, if anybody's commented on what these are, people who know more about the blockchain than I do. But yeah, so on Friday I did see all these and I said, hold on a sec, we've got to have a whole bunch of sells on BlackRock. And then I looked at some of the other data I have, and again, I don't know if I really want to load this now in case it wrecks my computer, but I'll try one and see. So I use Coinalyze, which I've made my own little chart on, and I do it based on Coinbase, and so I do it to look at where the Coinbase are buying. So you can see here we've got the CVD, this is the CVD for Coinbase, and then I've also got the aggregated spot CVD. Then I've got aggregated futures CVDs and aggregated open interest. Which is looking crazy at the moment, to be honest. I haven't looked at this today, but the aggregated open interest is going up massively all day today. And then from there, so when I have aggregated open interest doing crazy things, I will then go and look on EXO charts, which I definitely won't load now because that tends to take its time, even when my computer is operating correctly. But then I'll go and look and see, is everybody shorting the bottom, because that gives you net longs and shorts. So I go and look and see, is everybody shorting the bottom, or are the longs going in, or something to see what's happening. And I think what I could see on Friday, is this Friday? 21st, yes. So we had actually there's a whole bunch of buying going in later in the day. But we had the CVD from Coinbase was really dropping off, and that was when we'd had all those BlackRock sells earlier. We had Binance looking fairly poor, but the price was still pushing up. So the spot CVDs, both for Coinbase and the aggregated being mostly Binance, were dropping while price was still going up, which then implies, and the aggregated CVDs for futures were going up. So it was implying, that derivatives were pushing the price. And then similarly, coming up to the point that we did make the high, we could see like spikes in open interest, and that was spikes in people in shorts getting stopped out, shorts being squeezed, and then people longing the top. And then when you start seeing longs at the top, then you probably think those longs are going to get stopped out, and that's when the drop started. And then, like I say, shortly after that, we had the news that Bybit had been hacked. But yeah, so I'd said in the group anyway, long before that, to be wary due to those transfers on BlackRock, because I don't know what they are, but I know if BlackRock's doing something, then something unusual, then it's probably wise to be wary. And then we had the drop not long after. On top of that, we've had quite a lot of big sells from Grayscale going through. So Grayscale, and again, even so there's 3 days ago, and there's an ARC. Oh yeah, so there's actually the most recent one 2 hours ago. Grayscale's another 681 Bitcoin transferred to Coinbase. I'll say that rather than sold. But I was taking these as sells before, but now I'm less sure. And then we've also had like 3 days ago we had a big one from ARC as well. But the problem is when I go and look at my normal data sources, or what I was using before, having found this Arkham data. So this is Farside Investors, farside.co.uk. I'm not seeing the same data. So this first column, let's get rid of that from the bottom. This first column is BlackRock. So actually maybe I need to reload this because it hasn't got, 21st should be Friday, I think. Yeah, so this first column being BlackRock, we don't see that big sell or what may have been a sell, the big transfers from BlackRock in here. And I was wondering if they'd appear today because there might be timing differences. So maybe we'll see them appear at the end of the day today. I'm not sure. Advertising's annoying. And then similarly, while we're seeing some sells on Grayscale, they weren't as big as the ones that are showing on the Arkham data set. So again, it's hard to kind of fully tell. And you know, this is data. So like I say, I was using this kind of with hindsight more than anything else. And we still predominantly stick to using the chart to actually make trades. But it's interesting to see what's driving the price. So yeah, on Thursday and Friday we did have overall, we've had net sells for a while, and in fact for a lot of February there's been net sells, but Thursday particularly was the larger ones. Yeah, anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. So going back to the chart, you know, this was around the time it was, yeah, so where are we? 10, 11 o'clock. So while we were going up this last section is when I said, you know, be wary because of what BlackRock appears to be doing, and then we had the drop anyway. So yeah, as I said, unfortunately it didn't reach the level I wanted it to. And now I'm just a bit wary, and I'll get to the detail like I said, but I put a question mark entry here, and I'll explain that in a moment. Just then a quick look at ETH of the low time frame. So similarly, ETH has just been doing my head in a bit, quite frankly, because so ETH, I've just been saying for a while that I want to take out this trend line, but then we came down here and we still bounced, and then we've come down again, and are we still going to bounce? I don't know, but I've kind of for a while said I want to take these trend line stops because we see the majors have all done that. Similarly, at the highs on this, I've had, you know, this daily supply alerted here and it was just short of it, alerted here and again it was just short of it, and a slightly lower high. And even again today, you know, the alert's gone I think all 3 times, but again just short of hitting that zone. So yeah, so the short side, while I've been kind of doing the right thing and then I haven't been shorting for a lower high, unfortunately it's still never quite reaching my zone. And I've thrown in the alert again for a 4th time. Whether we'll come back, then no, my luck when we actually eventually get there, we'll run straight through it. But anyway, it is what it is. Then as of last week, so we were looking, so again, I think this was, yeah, the last time I streamed, we'd had decent long entries down here. And then I got a long on the retest on a 2-hourly demand, I think that was in here. So that would have given really nice trades. Then when we had the Bybit drop on Friday, all these, maybe, or at least two of the 3 entries I had here, I had talked about when we were trading this one. I think maybe that lower one, again, I was looking for to come into the 8-hour demand, but then it was a 10 minutes slightly higher, and I think there was a CME gap there, slightly higher, so I was thinking, okay, maybe this will bounce slightly higher, so I had the 2 entries there, which did get a nice up move after the Bybit drop, but then obviously it came back down again, and then back down into this lower entry, which gave a very strong up move over the weekend, which I have to say I didn't quite expect. But then obviously, as I've said, didn't quite hit the short entry that I wanted. And now again, we've come down. So there was a 2-hour demand in here that was untested. I've said be wary of that because we had the CME gap below, but you know, you can get these scalps in the middle. So it was worth watching there. Also had the naked point of control. So we got a little bounce here, but not really much. And now we've dipped down into this lower level. So on both, you know, Bitcoin and Ether now, obviously I'm just looking to see if these current levels hold. And it's Monday, so it's early in the week. So we're looking obviously for what Monday does, what Monday candle looks like. And then if Tuesday takes out the high or takes out the low, you would then potentially look for, if it takes out the low and closes back inside, or the high and closes back inside, you would then look for continuation the other direction to take out the opposite side of Monday, potentially. Ether also has a new 8-hour supply up here, and again, while I don't love it being such a big zone because there's a couple of hourlies inside it, and I also don't love the fact, so on both of these, while I've got those short entries in, I'm conscious that we're coming off a higher low still. So in the case of Ether, you know, like we're still, at some point this crazy sideways range has to end, but you know, it is in an uptrend. So do we want to short for a lower high? I'm not sure, so I haven't done it so far. Now it's got an 8-hour supply, maybe it's more reliable. But the problem also again on Ether is we now have a 3-day demand. But I'll get to that. So moving on to, Oh wow, okay, so we've now got, so I'll move on to Bitcoin on the higher time frame, so I can now delete that weekly because we've run through it. But Korea has been really like the critical, Bitcoin Korea has been like really critical for me in determining what price is going to do, because if you look at this, if you look at the Bitcoin Korea chart there on the right, and you compare that and the cleanness of it compared to the mess we have with the US dollar chart on the left, so it's been much more reliable and it's much more useful. And when the US dollar pair does start doing crazy things and not being clear on supply and demand, then it's always worth watching the Korea chart. And obviously, as I said before, typically the US dollar dominance chart. So mostly, so this is some of the issues. So the CME chart made a weekly supply. Not a good one, not a strong one, and we're still on monthly demand. So I'll show you that quickly. But you know, we have a green candle, up candle, we closed red candle below, so we made a weekly supply in there. Not particularly strong, it hasn't closed significantly below, and in fact only closes a strength failure. But if I see that, I'm not going to trade against it. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm heavily short biased, particularly not because we're in the monthly demand and we're still holding range. But it does mean I don't particularly want to trade against that, so I've been wary of longs for that reason. Additionally, on the bear side, we've had Korea, so this had a weekly demand in here and had a 2-week demand, and I'd said previously I want to see this weekly hit, and then the weekly hit got a bounce but didn't get very far, so I said okay, now we've got a 2-day inside it, so obviously I'm not looking, and these are not best demands either because they're floating out from the price. You really want the demand you're looking at is much more reliable if it's at the left of price, but these can get bounces, so it was worth watching. So I then said okay, well, we'll look at the 2-day inside that. Again, that did get a bounce but only came back up, and by then had made 3-day supply. So if it's not going to push through supply, that you're then looking for where's the next demand, and then at this point we haven't really got any, so it was then looking at, are we going to take out some of these lows? So we do have a sort of almost equal lows there, and then this low. What else? Let me just look at what this is. Okay, so, and the other thing with Korea, so is the Korea pair, is that I tend to want it to align with the US dollar pair before I look for a big move. So when we've had a big move, you'll see the US dollar pair and the Korea pair become out of alignment. And what you then tend to see is consolidation, and in that period they can realign, and Korea can hit zones that maybe it hasn't hit before, while the US dollar pair goes sideways. Just checking my stream again. So what I had here is like at the moment we are actually now reasonably well aligned. So let me just show you the actual charts. So what I tend to look for, and it's messy and it's hard to tell, because what we had, so back in November we had this sort of small consolidation and then a move up from it, so both matched each other on that. Then we had the crazy Korea wick, which dropped all the way back down, but then pushed and really pushed afterwards. And at that point, that's kind of when we started to decouple a bit. We saw the kimchi premium went much more extreme. And while everything was moving up together, Korea moved up a lot more. And then on the retest, similarly, this is when the US dollar pair started to go into much more of a sideways consolidation, whereas the Korean pair was still pushing up. So now where we've come back down, we're kind of, compared to January, both pairs are in broadly the same place. We're kind of matching around the same spot, and in fact Korea is probably a bit lower now when you compare to the January consolidation. However, the difference is we have this November daily demand that's kind of holding this whole consolidation up, and the whole US dollar pair is really kind of on top of that, a little bit higher now, but Korea is still quite a long way from that area there to match that. But again, like I said, it's slightly more challenging because the consolidation is just sort of moving around. But either way, we've been continually creating 3-day, 2-day supply on Korea and dropping off that. So that's made me, like I say, much more wary of being long biased on the US dollar pair. And then couple that with this new weekly supply on CME. And then also we had 3-week demand already, and 2-week demand on the US dollar tether pair, but this also made a 3-day demand over the weekend, or just I think with yesterday's close. So that's like just bounced and tapped off that and pushed up again. We didn't make the equivalent 3-day supply on the US dollar pair because it just sort of saved itself at the last minute. But yeah, anyway, you can see, I'll just take that 4-hour out of there on the US dollar pair, but I guess you can see how messy this is from a supply and demand perspective. You know, it's really just, it's been going sideways. It did create a 3-day demand by closing above this candle on Saturday, but then it came back down on the following Friday to not create a 3-day supply, but it's come like all the way almost to the bottom of that 3-day demand. So it's not, and similarly, I think we had a 4-day supply. So we had a 4-day supply in here previously, but it wicked through, but then closed back below again. So I'm just kind of indecisive on these mid time frames in here. And like I say, when we've had this much consolidation in one area, I'm then become also fairly loath to put in new entries within the range because I can see them becoming lower probability. So the only things I've really said on this today are, you know, be wary of the CME weekly supply. Then CME also has a daily inside that. But again, the level isn't great. So it's the daily is at 97K or just below 97K. So again, I said then there's a possibility that we either come up and test this 4-hour supply at the top that I've talked about already on the US dollar pair, or we could possibly swing fail the Saturday candle. So that would be something to look for if you really want to trade this range and you want to trade short entries. I'd be firstly looking for a swing fail of Saturday's candle at 97K, and then the CME pair hitting this daily supply inside the weekly, or failing that, possibly this 4-hour at the top. But as I say, it's not high probability, and the ranges are becoming messy. If you want to stick with cleaner, the other thing to look for is, again, as I always do, the confluence with Korea and the confluence with US dollar dominance. So Korea has made a 3-day and 2-day supply up here, or daily supply. So if the US dollar pair comes up into the sort of 98 region, I would want to see the Korea pair hit this zone. I'm not sure they're aligned well enough for that at the moment, but that would be potentially good confluence to look for a short in there. And that similarly, you know, you can see even on Friday when we had the high, you know, Korea just tapped into this 3-day supply, whereas the US dollar pair was just floating. So as I say, just always be, you know, you don't have to trade the Korea pair to have an interest in it, but it just gives you confluence, particularly when you're in a kind of very messy situation on the US dollar. So US dollar dominance. So I've said before, you know, I really wanted a retest down here, which we're not getting. And also potentially, you know, I still would like to see this zone hit down here, but again, we're not getting that at the moment. So obviously it's now looking fairly bullish on this chart, at least if we can get a decent close today, but it's Monday, so it's so hard to judge. We have this 2-month supply up here, various weeklies and 2 weeklies inside it. You know, the wick didn't quite hit that. So that's certainly something to watch for, you know, if we do get another bigger drop on Bitcoin, to watch for this wick to get taken out. There must be some other lower time frame level in there. But as I say, so for this is still bullish for now. We've got a 3-day demand in there. We've got a 3-week demand. You know, while I would have preferred it to come deeper inside, it didn't. You know, it's tapped off the top of it and moved up. And this 3-day, and we might create a 5-day today as well. So again, so this is still holding like a local bullish structure within the range it's created here up until the top of that wick. There's actually a 5-day up here as well. Let's put that in. So yeah, like, you know, there is still, while I always wanted the US dollar dominance pair to go down into this zone, because I just don't love double bottoms, and prefer to actually hit true demand, and particularly if the demand hasn't already been tested like this one, and it was down with the 61 fib. You know, it's a very good level, but, you know, okay, it can front run it. If it's still holding this upward structure, maybe this is a double bottom and it's just going to run straight through this 2-month supply. But, you know, again, cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll see what happens when we get any tests inside here. And it is just like I've said this on a lot of alts. It's similar to quite a few alts actually. It's just very choppy and messy through here. So first instance, you're just looking at the level. Are we going to get a rejection off the level, and then go down to the lower time frames inside We have a 2-week supply there, so that's a possible 5.14 area, looking for a possible pullback there. And yeah, and then all I'm looking for with this, obviously we're not trading this, but we're looking at whether we should be longing alts or longing Bitcoin. So you're just looking for the confluence. And certainly lower time frames, like as soon as I see, okay, this is made, I think for example today, this has made a 12-hour demand and an 8-hour demand on top of it, and it looks like it hasn't come actually back down to test that, so it hasn't tested this. But again, what do we have on Bitcoin? We've got a 12-hour supply, which it did test, and then we've also got an 8-hour supply. So I'm saying, okay, if I want to short that 8-hour supply on Bitcoin, I'm saying, do we also have an 8-hour demand on US dollar dominance? Yes, we do. Do we also have an 8-hour on CME? Yes, we do. And Korea. So I'm looking for, do we have confluence of all those things? So in this case, yes, we do have confluence of all those things, and that obviously makes your shorting 8-hour supply here if you wanted to, or Korea's already tested it, but it makes it significantly higher probability. It's not that I'm saying short now for on that, because we are on Monday and we are at the bottom of the range, so this is a very risky short for a Monday when it's left stops above. But that's up to you if you want to take that. It does have confluence. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. Like I said, there's not many entries that I really want to be highlighting right now because it's just too messy for me. To reiterate, the higher zones, there's a 2-day in here that I alerted, there's an 8-hour up there, and then there's also a couple of equal highs here. If we do get an up move for the short side, I've added in this zone alert, but I don't like it much. So I put that in the comment there. I only like this if Korea hits at the same time, and as of now, it's likely that Korea won't hit at the same time because Korea is significantly lower. But there was also a wall at 98k on Coinbase, so again, I thought it was worth watching. So there's that, and then there's a possible swing failure of 97k, but I mean, frankly, this is looking not very nice at the moment. To the downside, obviously, as I've said many times, we're looking to hold this daily demand that's holding up this whole consolidation. Would like to see, would be nice to see a test in there, potentially taking out this low. That does take out the monthly demand, so we then have to be careful because we've only got 4 days to go until the end of the month, and we don't want that monthly demand to flip to supply. The other option is, if we just take out these lows, all of the lows on a wick. And again, if we can take out the lows on a wick and close back inside, and then I don't consider that as a broken zone. But if we get a proper close down here, then I'd much more aggressively start looking for shorts. And then if anyone's just new to watching this, I don't like this. When I have many zones that I'm thinking about, what we do tend to find is that they get run through. So don't take any of these as gospel, but there is if this wicks through here, there is a 4-hour, or a couple of 4-hour demands there that could get picked up. There's a 12-hour here, and I think there were various, let me put that on, there were various point of controls that haven't been tested through here. So yeah, you can see the red line, so there's a point of control just above that 4-hour, there's another one there, there's another one here. So there's kind of confluence for various reasons for bounces at all of those levels, but I could just say then, well, I'm right if it bounces anywhere, and I don't really like doing that. So my preference would be if we get a nice test into this 3-month demand below, take those naked point of controls off. So perfect well we get a test into this 3-month demand here, and that's where I'd kind of be more confident looking for longs, and I really hope we don't fall off this too, because we could fall off this pretty hard if it wants to. So we'll see, but those are all the levels if you are looking to trade Bitcoin higher or lower time frame. There's things to watch, the lower time frames locally, and then the bigger picture down below 72k is where I'd be looking for bigger picture longs if we get a retest down there. Okay, so I don't think there's anything more to say on that. I should really hide this watch list because it makes the vertical chart easier to read. Any questions? No, nothing so far. Confluence on the long side, actually, just one thing probably thinking is, yeah, Korea's taken out this low here, but it would be potentially nice to see Korea come down into this weekly demand, or even like pick up one of these old levels that got wicked through before for proper longs, but it's just not clear at the moment. So I'll give it a little bit more time on this and see if Korea gives more structure to be able to look for more for higher probability longs. Don't think there's much more to say on that. Ether. I'll light a cigarette quickly. Ether's like even more messy and painful and annoying, quite honestly. So Ether, and you know, I've said in all my updates that I wanted Ether to come down onto this 2 weekly zone. I'll watch this time. So yeah, I wanted Ether, the Korea pair, to come down onto this 2 weekly zone at least, you know, if not lower, because this, you know, when we look at the US dollar pair, it's wicked right down to the bottom of here, and Korea is just miles off even testing the same zone. And then I've said many times, you know, this isn't a strong zone. I think on the US dollar pair, this is a monthly zone. On the Korea pair, it's only a 2 week. But as I said, it's not, you know, we've got a double top, swing failure of the high. This is the demand that pushed this up move, so we might get a bounce in here, but this is not a strong demand. And as I said, so the US dollar pair is wicked all the way down to the bottom of this. The Korea pair is holding higher. We do have this trend line, which is, you know, trying to hold, but so at least I want to see a test into this cross. But it's just been kind of throwing me off because it's it made it did actually have a 4-day supply in there. I don't know why I've forgotten to put that in. This is the problem with so many different zones and different time frames, and when we're really ranging on the lower time frame and not getting weekly supplies, like it becomes much more important to look at 3-day, 4-day, 5-day. So we did actually have a 4-day supply in here, so it wicked pretty high into that and then came back down again, but that's a pity I missed that because that would have made me more confident in shorts. As of yesterday, we created a 3-day demand by a tiny hair, so it's not really a solid zone, but it has just, sometimes you can get a little bounce off the top and a little up move before it comes back down, but in this case it hasn't, it's just come straight back through that zone today. And again, offers just a slight swing fail in there. We also had, yeah, and then on top of this, it had a daily demand in here, but that had tested yesterday for the final up move. But this has come back through here much quicker than I would have thought. But again, it's just showing that weakness on the Korean pair, which we just don't see as much on the US dollar pair. Give me a light in my cigarette. But yeah, again, so while we've got this 2-week demand here, we do have this kind of fairly big gap. So this is not necessarily a level that's set in stone, and we could very much come down much to the start of this this up move. So don't take that as a gospel level, but you know, at a minimum, I wanted this to hit. I didn't like the fact, you know, that it bounced on this 4 hour and it was using that as support for so long. So I'd like this to come down into here and or deeper. And like I say, this is not a strong zone, so it could still break down, but just on the lower time frame, that would be where I'd be more confident of looking for longs on Ether. CME, I think, didn't really give anything of particular interest. Moving off the set chart, still just running in this range. The US dollar pair and CME both had this 2-day demand from last week, and it's come down right to the bottom of that, but it's still holding. But it's week 2-day demand. So then we had this CME gap here, which has now been closed. I think that's been closed. Just check that. Sometimes, yeah, it looks like it's been closed. It's close enough anyway. So again, this I was hoping, like so similarly, and why I had that short on the US dollar pair that I talked about earlier, is because I wanted some of these highs to get taken out. And this is, I guess I've been looking at this with similar structure to here, that we did have this big gap up here, so it doesn't necessarily have to fill these big gaps like immediately anyway, but we did also get, you know, a couple of pushes, and we held that as resistance on the CME pair. So it's sort of similarly, it's doing similar things here now, and also similarly, I wanted a lot more of this wick to get filled, and we haven't seen that on CME or the US dollar pair yet. And in addition, we've got a double bottom down here, so I don't even know if we're just going to break this whole zone, but I guess we'll see. But it's just been messy and sideways, a bit like Bitcoin really. I'll get to the US dollar pair in a second. ETHBTC had this bounce off the 2-month demand, and again it's just been chopping, so it's held 2-day demand. I think it then went through a 2-day, I made a new 2-day and it went through that, but it's come back up, and now it's got a new daily demand and a new 3-day. But again, I was hoping for this to push at least into supply off last night's candle, but it's come back down deeper again. Could get a bounce from here, so maybe we will get some strength back on Ether again. But this is just choppy up move at the moment, and every attempt Ether makes seems to get battered back down. So again, Ether since my last update has really just been sideways like Bitcoin. So we did make this new 3-day demand. Let me show you that. So it's not a good one. I'll take my lines off, but you can see, so this candle on the 3-day chart, we closed above, we closed off a swing failure, so it was a weak demand, but it's come back down deep into that. But did have the CME gap just to sort of throw off our confluence a bit, but again was not worth longing the top of the 3-day based on the CME gap being much further below. So we've come back down more deeply. This is obviously the daily supply that I keep talking about. I wanted to get tested, taking out these wicks, and we're still not getting a test there. And then this trend line, I kind of wanted us to take out these trend line stops and come back down. This zone isn't clear because we have a wick, so there's no clear demand here, but just at least to the 61 golden fib area to look for longs. But it's just very tight sideways consolidation, so it's not very useful. So on just entries, updates, I haven't really changed anything. Again, I've sort of said here, I don't like having multiple entries like this, but when we come down and we don't properly test zones, it makes it challenging. Because, sometimes you can go, there's two options, we can either go, right, I haven't tested the zone all the way up here and just do a giant green candle straight up to the top, or you can find that it goes level by level, comes up into here, drops back, comes up to the next one, drops back, comes back to the next one. So until you see what that does, you can't comment. And as I always say, we look for reactions on these zones. I'm not trading any of them blindly, so we're saying, if and when it gets here, we look for, does it do anything, is it giving you some lower time frame structure to look for a short. So my preference was, so we've got a 4-day supply here and a 3-day inside and a weekly inside that. So my preference is kind of around this area, 61 fib. Ether likes the 61 fib, to look for higher probability shorts. With this entry then being conscious that we do have 2 CME gaps above, we do have a bunch of highs here that weren't, that we left, I think, equal highs. There's a whole bunch of kind of relatively equal highs and then 2 actual equal highs up there. And then on top of that, we've got an untested daily, and then I think another untested daily. So we've got 2 untested daily supplies up the top if we ever get back up there. This one was just a tentative entry I put in, given price action is quite slow at the moment. Again, Ether can reject off so this is a 4-hour zone that was holding up the consolidation previously, and Ether can front run supply if it wants and reject lower, taking like the resistances like the low here, for example. There's also the 2 months. So again, I've talked previously, we had a 2-month supply in here, and that's why I wanted shorts here to start with. We ended up swing failing that whole zone. So it's very possible if we come back to this 2-month level, we get a rejection. So that was just, I didn't want to just bypass that level and only go for the conservative options, just in case we just sort of throw a wick into here and then drop. And you can sort of see similar here, when it, so obviously we've got the support here, and then when it came up to test, it rejected off there rather than going back up to the supply at this point. So I just wanted to be conscious of that so we don't miss out on a short. if one's given slightly earlier. To the downside, so like I've said, we've got this 61.70 fib, and then below that we've got a 3-month demand, so, and various CME gaps that were left historically. They're probably less relevant now, they were only very small ones, but yeah, so the 3-month demand around the 1900s, 17 to 1900 would be a kind of a nicer long entry, in my opinion. And then I'm just going to ignore my usual comments and analysis about this potentially being a huge double top and then potentially targeting significantly lower if it wants to. Yeah, so a quick summary on Ether. If we get a bigger drop, 3-month demand down here, 4-month demand as well. I think I put another level there. And 3-week inside, so around the 17 to 1900 area would be worth watching. If it is going to give a higher low, potentially in here around the, what's that, 22, 23 mark. And then, as I've said, various possible short entries above, and there's just a few too many, which makes it slightly concerning. But yeah, just watch the reactions as and when we hit various levels. Some, you know, in a way, swing fails are harder to alert, but easier to trade, because if you just see the failure, then you trade after it's closed back below the level. It's taken out the level and closed back below. And yeah, so that's it on Ether. But from a low time frame perspective, I think I'm not going to add anything to these for now. I want to see just a bit more of Monday play out, where our daily close is. Are we going to create new daily supply? I think in the case of Ether, are we going to create a new 5-day supply? Or actually, maybe on both of them, might create 5-day supply today, so I want to have a look at that. But I might post in the Telegram channel if I add any new entries to these on the lower time frames. So yeah, keep an eye on that later. Let me take a quick sip of a drink, I think. Anyone who's watching, feel free to ask me any questions. So the majors have obviously been mostly pretty slow moving as well, so I've kind of added in entries just to be able to get in early entries if we are going to break ranges either one way or the other. Start with Litecoin. I'll hide my watch list again. So Litecoin is obviously up at the top of this immediate range and has kind of been struggling a bit. It doesn't seem to want to break out here so far. I don't know if it's building up support, but it has made 3-week demand. So I should probably say actually on all these alts as well, just bear in mind the 2-month is about to close, so I'm going to want to see where our 2-month closes. So in this case here, potentially it's going to be a 2-month level, and then the monthly maybe slightly lower. I don't really like these as demand zones, but you know, just in case it picks up a higher level. But they're not confirmed as yet, but we'll see what close we get in 4 days time. So we did make a 3-week demand, but week 1 we didn't close above the wick of it, so I don't love it. We also have a 2-week in here, and a weekly, and it's just messy again. 5-day. I think there's no 5-day, but then there was a 4-day close above here, and then we actually closed a week 4-day demand at current price. And then we did close also earlier before that, we had the 3-day demand. So I threw in a long entry on the 3-day demand just in case we were going to get a push from there. And it did get a push up, but only got as far as 12-hour supply and has now come back down deeper into the zone. Still holding it. But I've kind of been doing this mainly under duress based on how I normally trade, because I know people are interested in Litecoin and are keen to get this breakout that we may get if ETF gets approved. And I don't really know what the current news is on that actually. So yeah, for me, my preference has always been trade in the buy at a discount and sell at a premium. So I feel like, buying here, we're buying potential tops, we're buying at the top of the range, which I don't think is wise, and I'm not great at breakout trading. So my preference has always been to buy back down here. So if we do get a retest of this 61 zone, I think that's a 61 based on why I've got my low of it. Okay, so I guess I've got the low at the bottom of this wick for the move up and just ignoring the major wick. but that would be the 61 for this last up move as a possible long entry, and it is looking quite distribution-ish now. And then also back here on this 3-day level at the bottom of the range and taking out these stops, I thought was a possibility. And then that would now be on the 61 to 70 fib of the whole up move, including the wick. Litecoin has come off a 2-month demand at the base, and my alert, I think my alert did go, but my actual entry was on the 3-day inside that, so it did front run me. But I think, you know, you would have been knife catching if you tried to catch this wick anyway. But yeah, so that's what I'm watching on Litecoin. You know, like this 3-day, it may hold. You know, it could still move up from here, but I don't love how this is looking right now. It's going to might create a daily supply in there, so I think be careful on this. Like if it creates a daily supply, I would suggest exiting on a retest, and it's already got a 12-hour in there anyway, and then just waiting until we get a bit more of a retracement. Just double check my stream again. Yeah, not much more to say on Litecoin. If we did get an up move, I'd be looking at the $195, $200 area, I think. But again, I think historically this isn't necessarily that clear. You know, it may just come up into this weekly. It could just come a little bit higher as a 3-week, and then yeah, and it's so long ago that, you know, just don't. And if this breaks out, also it could make a significant move. But that's where my next possible short entry is on Litecoin if it gets up there. Also, I should say on all of these majors, I haven't looked at the BTC pairs again yet, and that is much more useful. So Ripple, obviously we had the triangle, the breakout, and then the taking out of all the stops of the triangle, and it's just now holding in again in a sideways range on this. It hasn't really done much. I had an entry for a long on a 3-day demand here, but it caught, I think the alert did go because sometimes I put the alerts higher, like if I can see, so I could see this had a 12-hour just above the 3-day, so I put the alert higher, so this did go off. It didn't make a higher, and then came back down, so I reset the alert for this 3-day demand here. So again, just we can see if this holds now. And as I've said, I'm just being slightly more aggressive on entries just to be able to get scalps and potentially get early entries. So this short, if this 3-day holds, isn't high probability. So it could just run straight through there. And then I'd have another entry up here for 2-day. I think there's a 3-day and a 5-day supply up there with potential stops above, but that's where I've got those 2 possible short alerts on this, and then this 3-day demand if this holds here. To the downside, again, nothing different from my previous analysis. We've got a 3-day demand there, a 3-day demand here. I think I was going with the Ripple likes to take out stops, so I was going with the second one down, but then there's also an annual and a 6-month demand significantly lower, so it just really depends how much of this up move it wants to retrace, if it wants to retrace at all. But again, like, and then if we see this, we'll see on some of the other majors as I get to them that some of these have flipped supply in here. So if this starts flipping supply, then I'll get more aggressive on the shorts. If we see some 5-day, so for example, if we close underneath here today and make a 5-day supply, then we can get more aggressive on shorts. Nothing on the 4-day, and then there's already that 3-day in there, so that's why I'm looking for a potential short, just to get those early entries if we don't get the higher retests on these. BCH I was always more bearish on, purely because of stops. So I'm not bearish on this. So this has a 6-month demand. So it had a bounce off here, didn't manage to make a higher high. So typically expect to take out that low, which is what has happened. But BCH obviously had barely any move off it. It's left a whole bunch of stops down here, and also didn't quite hit, so it's got this monthly demand inside the 6 months, so that was where my alert was. So again, this wick didn't quite, while it's made a swing failure there or stop hunted, it hasn't quite taken out the lows, or sorry, it didn't quite hit the zone that I wanted it to hit, so my preference would be for it to come down here. But I suppose, it's testing now the 6-month level again, so it might hold, where it is. I think also the grayscale BCH pair is looking ugly, and I wanted lower on that, so won't show that now, but go and have a look at it as a BCHG, I think it is. you can see what I mean on Grayscale, because I think Grayscale is just sort of falling off a support and is looking for the next one, which is quite a lot lower. So, well, not a lot, but some distance lower. So I haven't had any new entries on this, although I actually could have had one on this 5-day supply in here. Still slightly wary because of the 6-month demand on this. Yeah, I would like to see this a bit lower. It's going to make, so I think it has made, yeah, so it made a daily supply. So I would have shorted that if I'd noticed it in time, but yeah, we'll put a short alert there. But so it has got this daily supply here that it has rejected, and I think, yeah, there was nothing to add after that, and then had this 5-day. If we move up, like again, I'm conscious that we have a 5-day up the top here that's untested. We had a 3-week and 2-week in the middle, but we already got a short off there. So while this may reject again, or we may reject on, you know, lower on this 2-day supply in here, I've just been more conservative on the short entry for BCH. Yeah, not much more to say. I've had to delete a whole load of my alerts, so I put some of the comments that I've written inside them on the chart. So if you see writing on my charts, that's why, so I didn't have to write the comments again. But I ran out of alerts. You only get 800, and apparently I use a lot. EOS, I don't think anyone really trades this, but I use this more for a confluence perspective. This, you know, obviously is coming off major supply at the highs. It's in a very, very, very long downtrend, although you know, it's come into this range, but it's a very major downtrend. Yeah, having said that, you know, it did hit a monthly demand at the bottom, so again, could run from here if it wants to. I did, you know, it made a daily demand, so I did put a long entry in there, so that just went back up into daily supply and came back down again. So it's not, yeah, not really moved much and not really given any significant moves. So I again just want to see these potentially fall out of range, or give like a higher time frame or mid time frame, 3, 4, 5 day supply or demand to trade more confidently off, because the daily zones and 2 daily zones, and particularly when it's still in the range, are just on a relatively low probability. I've still got a 5-day supply alert, or 4-day then 3-day supply. So I'm alerting lower, but you know, potentially it's going to come into here. But EOS tends to be weaker, and given it kind of already tested this 5-day up here, it's possible it rejects a bit lower, or at least gives a reaction anyway. So that's the old majors. New majors. Start with BNB, I think. So again, like I say, this is just more to update, you know, the entries that I've had in the group, but I don't think I've shared most of these on the streams, because I haven't done an update on these for a little while, and I was just throwing them in as we went as well. So BNB, I think I did say on the last stream that I had kind of put an aggressive short entry there on the 4-hour just to see. You know, it is rejecting off 2-week supply, so while I'm bullish on this because it's coming from an annual demand, obviously annual demand doesn't have to play out immediately, so I thought it was worth looking for a short, because we'd had a fairly strong reaction off there to potentially come down at least into the start of this consolidation before the up move. So you can see I've alerted along there. Then obviously this 4-hour didn't get hit, so again thought it was worth having a more aggressive short entry, so I put an entry on the 8-hour supply there inside. I think the alert went actually on before the hit. I think it went on Friday, and we did get a drop first, so I don't know if people would have come back to this, but the zone's still held. And again, we're just looking now for, is this demand going to continue to hold, or are we going to get that drop down into a better long entry lower? Then I previously had the yearly level re-alerted, just to, because I think we might get a test down here at some stage, but potentially if we get a double bottom, that could be another decent entry for longs. Yeah, not much more to add on that. Yeah, I want the yearly demand to hold, but again, bear in mind yearly demands are, you know, it's massive, so it's probably, yeah, so there's this grey zone, so it's going to run. You know, it can still hold the yearly demand and run back to $200 if it wants to, so don't necessarily see the yearly demand as being a gospel for an up move. You're still looking for the lower time frames to confirm. Moving on to Link. So Link was really one of the uglier ones, and I was more aggressive on short, so I did have a short entry on the daily supply in here. It had created a 5-day as well. It's now changed that 5-day to a weekly, and I added a new possible entry on the weekly supply here, but unfortunately the push up today didn't quite make it. Also on link, it hadn't hit. I don't know if I want to delete that entry now. I'm not sure. I'll see where it gets to. Obviously it's dipping quite deep down into the fibs now, but this is one of the ones that hadn't, while it's in an annual supply overarchingly, which I haven't got drawn in because I think it was pretty weak and makes my whole chart grey. I wanted this to drop down into the 6 month demand down here, so keep an eye on this as it hopefully plays out and drops lower, and see if that gives you a long entry on that 6 month demand. Then, like I say, we do have this new weekly supply. Let me just look at the weekly quickly. So we'll see if we get a move up into the weekly supply before hitting the 6 month demand. I think it is reasonable to look for shorts still. And yeah, there's also a weekly demand inside this 6 months. So like I say, again, just reiterate, it can go lower inside the zone. 6 month zone, it's got a weekly inside, and then it's got a 3 weekly below. So this could still drop deeper into the zone. But if this does move up before hitting the 6 month demand, I think you can still look for shorts there. In addition, this also I think had a, I don't know, it's hard. Like I'm never quite sure. Like if we've made a supply, so we've made a 5 day supply and tested it here, and then it's converted later into a weekly. So I'll show the 5 day. So you can see the 5 day there, and then this is wicked up inside it. But I'm never quite sure if I want to then trade it as a weekly, having it already had the rejection on the 5 day. This may also create a 2 day supply in here. I don't know if I want to remove that line. Yeah, I think it's still reasonable to look for shorts there. I think also there was a 4 hour up the top here that hadn't been tested. So just, again, if we do get an up move, if we take out this high into the weekly, then you've got a possible swing failure here and a possible swing failure here that you could look for to at least get confirmation for potential short entries. But this might be a little bit too aggressive. We shall see. And if it is, then oh, and then we've got a daily above here, so we're still not testing. We haven't tested the daily in here, and then we've got the 5 day even higher. But yeah, don't take those link trades as link entries as gospel, because I feel like I need to think those through a little bit. ADA, I just had a long entry go off on this daily demand here. It didn't quite hit. I'm going to take that 8 hour supply out now. So I did have an alert here for 8 hours supply, but because it hasn't tested it before coming back down to demand, and because it's stronger than some of the others, I don't really want to have a short entry on a retest on this right now, I don't think. It has made, yeah, 2 week and 3 week supply above, but again, it's coming off this big 6 month demand. So bias is potentially up on this, but I don't know if the market's just really going to support that at all at the moment. So, excuse me. Yeah, I hadn't put any aggressive shorts up here because of the 6 month demand, and I'm going to stick with that for now. You know, I'd rather look for a short if it comes up into this 3 week supply. I think there are better majors to short. You know, even if this does reject here and drop, I think there's better things to short. So yeah, watch for a retest on this 6 month demand. If it comes back there, then this daily at current price, we could get a move up from here. And yeah, that's about it on ADA. Yeah, there were no new entries. Yeah, I might make a 2 day supply here tomorrow. So just keep an eye on what new supply and demand is made. And like I say, all of these I'm just trading within the range at the moment, or just alerting just so I can keep an eye on what they're doing. But they need just more time in consolidation and potentially more time to retrace this wick. But you can keep an eye on this for long entries on ADA. I think that's worth doing because it is one of the stronger ones and is coming off 6 month demand. Pole on the opposite side is one of the weaker ones. So, and I said last time I'm probably going to remove this and put Doggy Coin on here or something instead, because I just don't think people are that interested. This might create a 2 month supply, so really just be careful of that. If it creates a 2 month supply, I'm going to be much more confident looking for shorts. 4 days till that happens. It was similar to Link. It created the 5 day supply and then has changed it to a weekly, whereas created a weekly just below. No, it's the same level. So it created a 5 day supply. I did have a short entry in there. So that's worked out quite well. And then I added, similar to Link, a short entry on this daily and possible weekly supply yesterday, but it hasn't quite hit. But yeah, I wouldn't be looking for longs on this at the moment, you know, other than the fact it's back down in this 61 fib area. That's so I'm just noticing somebody promoting something in chat. But yeah, so this down 61 fib area, yeah, it might bounce, but it's not like, this is not something I consider particularly high probability. And as I've said before, I think in the bigger picture, which is, this is me adding this from the Matic chart. I should have the Matic chart over here to the side. I have to pull it in. So obviously we had an annual supply on the full chart at 76, so it hasn't, I think it hasn't gone back up there, but where is the other, should have another screenshot in here. Is it hiding? I'll find where my other screenshot is. You can't search your objects. It doesn't actually appear to have disappeared. Oh no, there it is. But that doesn't necessarily help me find it. There it is. Okay, so this is the full old Matic chart. So I feel like actually this is out of date now, so we are coming back down here. I probably need to put in a new version. So this old chart had the wick down into this weekly demand, and that's the weekly demand that we're currently in at the moment on Pol. If it does drop, it's got a significant distance it can drop, so I think this is worth looking for shorts on. So let me go back to the actual chart. So yeah, I've drawn the red line basically based on this. There's a monthly demand all the way down there, so that would be the kind of the bottom of that chart. And then now we're just in this weekly zone here. Is the equivalent to where we would be if we had the full history on the chart. Hopefully that's relatively clear, although it doesn't feel like it. But yeah, I think that it's worth keeping an eye on Pol for potentially, you know, if the market is going to drop again, this is one of the ones that can have a big drop. So I have put an alert down here on the 3-day demand below if it gets all the way down there. But certainly worth watching for short entries on this if you can get them. Then Sol, everyone's pretty interested in Sol. So we had a bounce here on this, and this was a 12-hour demand, which I've deleted now because it's gone through it, but it was a 12-hour demand in here, and there was a 2-week zone, so I kind of thought it was worth looking for. So we had, you can see the 2-week zone there, so I thought it was worth looking for the possible retest entry more aggressively, but this was the level that I've had for a while, the 2-month level down here at this next zone. So keep an eye on that as it comes down into this area and see if it can get the bounce. Like, I don't love that this is a triangle, and then it could, you know, again run the stop sale on a much bigger scale, but similar to how the structure that I've talked about on Ripple, you know, when we have this triangle and then we do a sort of distribution pattern that runs straight through. That is a possibility. So be careful, but, you know, watch for this 2-month demand to potentially get a bounce in here. Lower time frame, so I didn't add, I probably should have added, actually was watching this daily supply last night, but I felt like it's difficult when it's too much in demand, because then I'm like, I don't know if I want to be that aggressive, and I didn't want to be that aggressive on a Monday night as well. Sorry, on a Sunday night, Monday morning. But yeah, it's just come straight off daily supply there and dropped again. I did have a very nice short entry up here. This is why I say, so for the other majors, this is probably a good example. You can see it's like some of the other majors I've added this entry in, and they're kind of like here now. So it is worth doing these aggressive entries, because then if you can get it on the lower time frame in here, then you can potentially, if you do get a bigger breakdown, you potentially end up with a very good risk to reward. So I had a really nice short entry on this, which obviously gave the drop down to there. Then I did try, like I say, in case this two-week demand held for possible secondary push, didn't get it, but again, would have been as a safe trade, could have taken a break even or low loss on that. And then obviously now we're dropping down into this possible 2-month zone in here. So keep an eye on that as it comes down into there. And then has made a 2-week supply up here. So I think I've gone like with a more aggressive or 2-day supply and 3-day inside. Still coming from annual demand. Yeah, so again, the other risk on this, similar to Link, is that there is an annual level in here. And why this is happening again to me. Definitely turn my computer off downstairs today. So it does have an annual level in here. So we are overarchingly in annual demand. Maybe I should just show that. So it's not a strong annual demand, but we are overarchingly in an annual demand, but that doesn't mean it isn't going to retrace significantly down inside it before it moves up. Yeah, we'll see. Let me just check. So that's the 2-month demand that I'd be looking at for a possible long entry. So keep an eye on that as it comes down into there. What else have we got? Near next. So near was, I think, slightly more challenging. I did look for both longs and shorts on this. I think, yeah, this was a harder one. So we're in this monthly demand, but again, I kind of want it to drop lower inside now. I think we've already had a bounce off it, and then it was unable to make a higher high, and it's come lower inside, so possibly could try again from here, but it's not high probability, I don't think. I would like to see this in 3 monthly demand lower. And it really is, again, just a giant range. On the lower time frame, yeah, we had a 3-day demand, so I was trying to look for a long in that, but it ended up wicking through that. So it's just been this is what can happen when you trade within ranges. It can just end up being quite awkward. I'll go down the time frames and show you. So we had a 5-day supply, so I looked for a short based on the 5-day supply, but it ended up wicking all the way through it. And I think I wasn't that aggressive on the short. I did look at shorting, I think, up here in daily supply inside the 5-day, but it still ended up wicking through it anyway, so not strong supply. And then similarly on the long side, I looked for a long on this 3-day demand, but it's wicked down and taken stops before going through again. It's a weak 3-day demand. So this has come back down anyway. I have put an alert for 12-hour demand here. So again, you can look for long entries there if you want, but know that it's not overly high probability. And then you can look for short entries if it gets a test on this daily supply in here. Some of the alts are rejecting here, some of the majors, and some of them are wicking through it. So just be careful if it stop hunts this zone. But these are low time frame entries based on just trading around in these ranges as well. If we get a bigger move on the higher time frames, we've got 3-week supply and 5-day supply up there. If we get a bigger drop, we've got a possible long entry that I just talked about on the 3 months demand down here. So yeah, just watching for this range to resolve. And I always think, when we've been in a range this long now, it's probably worth holding. Like initially, it's going to mess around in the range and to try and stop people out on both sides. But if you can get along here, then once we've had a few hits of this zone, then it's possible that we're just going to get a run from here and it'll run straight through all supply. So it's worth holding a long if you get one here, worth holding a short if you get one above, in case we get the bigger breakdown. But really, we're just looking for the sideways range to resolve. Atom was, I had hope for this because this actually made, was one of the ones that didn't make supply, made a 3-day demand, but only by like a millimeter. Very, very weak one. It did get a bounce, so I did go. So my first long entry was just on this daily demand, but by then it had wanted to come back down lower, so that would have got stopped out. This one then did give an up move, but again, just got stopped by 12-hour supply. So again, entries are working, but not giving, like even this one worked to some extent, but not getting past supply. And then the same, even with the supply entries, they're more likely to get past demand because the whole thing is more down now. Yeah, this was just a bit too aggressive given we're kind of looking at a ranging move. I don't know on this now, it's come back down, it's still back in this 8-hour demand, essentially this zone is still holding. Might be nice if we get a move up to there, but again, I'm just a bit indecisive on that. And my overarching view on Atom as well is that it was just more bearish now, like we had come down into this 6-month demand. So, but the price came down in 6-month demand, went back up tested 6 month supply. I'm not sure in what order or tested here, and it's come back down again. So I really would like this to take out the low again. And then we also have an untested monthly at the bottom. So nothing I can really say on that. Like, oh, it's just a very tight sideways consolidation. Just look on the log charts, if it gives me a different view. You know, obviously, like, so a lot of these majors that we're seeing, you know, this sideways consolidation, Atom's one of the ones that's broken down from the consolidation, broken up, retested. So this I expect to make a lower low, so I'm less bullish on this. But again, doesn't mean it's not going to get a long entry that is even going to take it up to this 5-day supply. In addition, this has a 5-day untested up here and a 2-day untested at the top. So hopefully it went run through everything. Like, I'm more bearish on this, but that doesn't mean it's not going to bounce, correct some of this drop before doing a bigger drop. But certainly one that if you do get the local short entry is worth watching. And then finally DOT. I'm feeling like I'm lacking energy today, so sorry if this stream is mainly because I think it's just tiring. The market is a little bit tiring when we're like this, because it's like you're constantly looking at all the time frames and trying to assess new supply and demand, and just kind of time things for breakouts, which is just awkward. So DOT again, like Atom, I had a more aggressive long entry, which only got a little bounce before dropping through it. Short entry on this was similar to near, but again went high in the zone but didn't break the zone like near, and has dropped now. So again, decent short entry on that. But then the re-longing potentially on this new daily demand, it's dropped deeper inside, and it's a weak demand. Drop weaker and deeper inside is not surprising. Similar to the other charts we've seen, I've got an alert more aggressively on 4-day supply in that, but again has 3-week, 5-day, etc. above. And also the bigger picture on DOT, I guess, like, you know, hasn't quite taken out this low, but again just hasn't, you know, it's not really holding on a decent demand, you know, and it's if this monthly was going to work despite us coming all the way to the bottom, I would have expected a much bigger move and a move taking us into a much bigger macro supply. But yeah, it's really just a sideways larger range. So yeah, I guess on that, you know, like, just keep an eye on, like, I'm doing these very quickly, so keep an eye on what the high time frames are telling you on these. You know, this is a massive sideways range, so if we're shorting here, we are shorting towards the bottom of the range, so it's higher risk, but you know, you're shorting with the hope that it is going to finally break down the range, and we are seeing quite a lot of alts doing that, so I don't think that's a bad thing. But be conscious of what you're doing, and always, you know, use a stop loss. Don't hold if you are completely wrong and you have shorted the bottom here, then just get out. Look for shorts when it actually comes to a better level higher. But yeah, so I haven't added much new in the ranges here. I'll try, and again, I'll probably post maybe some charts rather than entries, but I want to see how the 5 days close. So like I say, the 5-day is closing, yeah, today. So the two critical things for you to keep an eye on at the moment are 1 month zones in 4 days when that closes, and then also any 5-day or 4-day. So 5 days is going to close today, 4 days is going to close tomorrow night. So this creates a 4-day supply. Again, I'll be more inclined to look for shorts. I think 3 days already closed, and some have made supplies and some have made demand, so you just need to take those as you see them. But it's more than now 3 days till those close, and the 2-day will close at the end of tomorrow as well, which is the same as the 4-day. So the 5 days are critical for today, and the 4 days will be critical for the end of tomorrow. Yeah, and then just trade accordingly. You know, these things are on major zones, so yes, it's possible they are going to have bigger up moves, but it's equally possible that we're getting, I think I compared previously to April, you know, that April 2024, you know, some of these, you know, that we had that drop and then we just had sideways move before bigger drops. So this is at a point where it could be similar. Like, this is obviously higher in the range, this is back on support in the range, but you know, it is possible we're just going to get these. That's why I'm being more aggressive, just in case we get those bigger drops. And probably the main thing with that is looking at those 2 months. So let's look at that while we're here. Yeah, so this is unfortunately going to give a decent 2-month supply or demand, and it's still in the monthly demand. But some of the charts you look at, you're going to see this, for example. you know, it's going to create a monthly supply, it's going to close below a little bit like that, and then you just get the tap into it. But those, you need to be very careful of your long entries if you're looking at those. Yeah, so that's about it on the majors. I need to kind of spend some time now and do more of the P's now. Some of my alerts have gone off, so I have got a new alert thing. Actually, I've discovered recently you can set alerts now on the watch list, which I hadn't realised before. I don't know if that's new or whether I just never noticed it. But anyway, you can see here I've got 400 alerts on technicals and 400 alerts on price, and I've set 337 on price and 395 on technicals. Technicals being when you draw a line and set an alert on it rather than choosing a price. So I've now got, you know, 80 odd alerts I can actually use, but I nearly ran out at the end of last week. So I started, so I stopped going through the P's. So I've done kind of all that, and I still need to do them. You know, even if I do run out of alerts, I still need to continue with my list because I'm still updating all these for the annual closes. You know, there's 700 I think alts on this list, and you know, I've got a long way, but I've also got a long way to go, sadly. So even if I do run out of alerts, I will try and finish these. Maybe I should make a plan to try and actually finish these this week because it's just taking too long. And now we're going to get monthly and 2 monthly closes to add to them in the next 4 days as well. But overarchingly, most of the entries are working. I'm seeing the odd thing, so we'll get, so let's, for example, we have ban here. We are occasionally getting pushes through zones, and I've said this before, and I said this earlier a minute ago on the majors as well. Like if we have a zone, but we have an untested zone above, occasionally we're getting pushes that's going through the zone to an untested zone. So it's being conscious of those, and also fairly low volume. So I know this, for example, was called by one of the bigger groups for longs, I think yesterday, so they probably caused some of this. In fact, maybe they even called it up here, that wouldn't surprise me at all, but they possibly caused some of this consolidation and hold here. So you have to be careful with the low volume. But for the most part, like again, similar to the majors, like the alerts are typically giving scalps, if not more. And it just depends on the timing of when they hit and where Bitcoin is. You know, we're getting the odd run through, so ALON here. I think this was supposed to be a weekly supply, I've got a feeling. Yeah, so this is a weekly supply and it has gone. I said be careful because I was wary of this because of the swing failure, and it did wick up very high in it, but again, it has come back down pretty heavily. So I think even things which are really pushing hard aren't lasting. Most of what I'm seeing is similar to ban, similar to this, you know, even I don't know if this is the or te, like I was about to pronounce this with like it's T in some other language. French? It's T in French? I don't know, for some reason I never want to say the. But again, you know, this, yeah, so this, it did run through, I think I had an alert here for, I don't know, daily or 2 day supply in it, so it's run through higher, but eventually it has retraced this whole pump move, and now it's coming back down again for a potential long entry. So we are seeing the retracements on virtually everything. It's just a question of how long it's taking, and in some cases if they're wicking a little bit through first, because obviously in some cases you're going to get swing failures. Similarly on the long side, you know, we've got VR, you know, he had a 2 day demand there, and you know, has had a nice move up. You know, it may or may not continue from here, I don't know, but virtually all of them, at least for the short term, are giving scalps. So I'm comfortable with continuing because I think I'm liking the independence of the alt market. They're not all doing what BTC is doing. Just as a quick heads up also on liquidity, so this is one of the ones that I highlighted when I was doing the L's and the M's and the N's, the L's on the watch list. This has hit a monthly demand, like it does have a whole bunch of stocks down here, so I'm also setting a new alert down there, but this is one of the ones that I actually think was kind of interesting. Like you can see here, for example, you know, once it did make the low here, it did, you know, so even if this does not break out, but you know, even if it does give you a decent, it could give you a decent move, like double in price or something up from here. So it's an untested monthly demand, so keep an eye on this for possible long entries. And there's not much else I want to say on the alerts at the moment, because I just think each of them you just need to take take as and when they hit and look for entries accordingly. Similarly, VTHO here is just hit a monthly demand, so again keep an eye on this for long entries. So if you're in the group and you're getting these alerts, you need to just watch and try and time them with BTC hitting demand or supply if it's a short entry. Anyway, this is probably not the best stream in the world because I've just been so indecisive about the whole thing. Let me see what Bitcoin's been doing in my absence. Okay, so Bitcoin's still getting a little bit of a bounce from here, but we might just have another boring sideways week, so I'm hoping so, because then I can spend some more time looking on the alts. But I'll try and do a stream on the P's and Q's and the many Q's, maybe the P's and the Q's tomorrow, and then I'll do an update again on Bitcoin if something's happened instead of this just sideways fun that we're experiencing. So anyway, yeah, have a good afternoon, and give me a shout on Telegram if you have any questions. Like and subscribe if you're interested, and you want to support me. But have a good evening.